Warning, due to some language and subject matter, listener discretion is advised.
I'm going to be perfectly honest. You never know what the TikTok algorithm is going to feed you on any given day. If you have a personal account, it feeds you things that the algorithm thinks is in your personal interest range. And if you have a business account, it feeds you things that the algorithm determines are of value to you. Lucky for me, my next guest has fallen in both. I flip-flop my account between personal and business all the time. And coincidentally, or not, I don't believe in coincidences, it was a video about pumpkin seeds and finding value in things that made me reach out to her. Vicki Magyar, aka Slick Vick, is joining me on the show, and we're going to talk about how a positive mindset is absolutely everything. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Caught on the Mic. There's the Zoom lady's voice telling me recording is in process. Joining me, where are you at, Ohio?
I'm in Ohio. I am, yes.
Awesome.
Yes.
Joining me from Ohio is Vicki Magyar, a.k.a. Slick Vick. How the heck are you this evening?
I am so good. How are you?
Good. Listen to that positive energy bleeding through. I love this.
I can't help it.
Tuesday, February 22nd, 2022. It is a legit Tuesday. What are you doing with yourself this evening, Vic?
Oh my gosh, I'm soaking up this like palindrome day, like the 2/22/22. But no, actually, I'm excited to be on the show, first of all. And just had a busy day, but I'm doing all kinds of things. I am that person where I cannot sit still, like no matter what. I'm pretty sure I'm like dancing and running in my dreams as well, as I sleep. But yeah, I'm just chilling out and just excited to be here, really.
I'm excited to have you. Did you have any, our weather where I'm at? I'm in Lincoln, Nebraska, right? Our weather has been up, down, up, down. It's been a total roller coaster ride. We haven't had a standardized winter. And I woke up this morning with a little bit of snow on the ground, and I'm actually kind of grumpy about it because it was 67 on Sunday.
I know. You know what? Ohio is probably very similar to Nebraska then, because we had the whole snow last week. And then today it was rainy, so like gloomy, dreary, but I'm pretty sure we're supposed to hit like upper 50s, upper 60s. But then by Friday, we're talking like 20 degrees is the high. So it's just like how do we dress? What do we do? I don't know. Like, you know what I mean? I don't know how to act. This is terrible. I'm ready for spring is basically what I'm saying. I'm ready for spring and summer. Like, let's just skip to it.
Right. And you're into health and fitness. This is playing hell with our immunity right now as well.
Oh my, listen, I've had the worst headache like all morning. I know it's because of the pressure. You know what I mean? But yes, this is why people, not to get all dreary and gloomy, but this is why people get sick around this time of year, because it's like your body just doesn't know how to like basically deal with the fluctuation in the weather. It's terrible. I don't like it.
Biohack, and I know it's not the most healthy thing for people to do, but biohack from a 40-year-old man. I tan this time of year. I jump in the tanning bed because it helps me combat seasonal affective disorder. And it's like, it's how I keep my head above water some days, but that's crazy.
That's true. It's true though. Like we don't get a lot of sun here, and it's like, you gotta feel good somehow. So right. I'm all for it.
So without any further ado, why don't you introduce yourself and kind of tell your origin story, tell your background, who you are, and, give our audience a little bit of background of why do I even have you on the show, aside from the fact that you're awesome?
Thank you. Okay. Well, thank you for introducing me, giving my actual name. And then of course my social media name, which is a lot of people they know me by Slick Vick. And to be honest with you, that name actually started when I was really young. I believe my best friend gave it to me, and it just kind of stuck. It's kind of one of those things where it just kind of rhymes. But as far as my origin story, so I don't know how far we want to go back, but if we're talking social media, I think it started with MySpace. I'm not even kidding you. Like, I was that person who was obsessed with MySpace. I had a ridiculous name, which I'm going to share right now, which I haven't shared this name in a long time. So this is a treat for those who remember MySpace. But my name was I Taste Like Strawberries. So ridiculous, I know. But you know what? It was one of those things where it's just like, it stuck, you know, but that's where I think my love for social media came. And I loved creating like fun pictures and the whole aspect of social media in general. But as far as I go as a person, so a little background story about me. So I'm from like Youngstown, Ohio, and I went to Youngstown State University, got my undergrad in communications, and later on got my master's in education and school counseling. But in between all of that, I had a huge desire to, somehow be in front of the camera. I'm sure you can tell from my social media, I just enjoy it. I think it's fun. I like, video content, photo content, you name it. So I tried doing the whole like news reporter, sidelight interviewer for like sports and whatnot. Didn't work out. Then I was like, well, you know what? I'm a healthy individual. I played sports my entire life. I mean, since I was, I think 4 years old, I played soccer and have done multiple other sports. I actually wrestled in high school. I was one of the first female wrestlers at my school. And I did track and, swam, you name it. I tried it all. So I was like, let me get into the fitness industry. So I got my, I got into personal training and I did some bodybuilding competitions, and it was just so taxing on the body. And I'm like, I don't know if I could do this the rest of my life. So then, going forward, I was like, I still want to help people, but what else can I do? So that's when I decided to go back to school and go for school counseling. And I was like, this will be great. I mean, heck, you have summers off. There's so many good things about being in a school, right? But I left the area. I went to Tampa, Florida, and I was there for about 6 months. And this is where everything kind of changed for me. So I went to Florida, got this job in a school, and very quickly of being there, things just started to crumble in my life. When I say crumble, I mean like physically, mentally, emotionally, it was really bad. And I didn't even notice it at first because I was training jujitsu. I mean, I trained jujitsu, and I was, I was a school counselor full time. I was doing all these things. And I kid you not, I woke up the one day and I had all these bumps on my leg from my hip down to my knee. And so what it was shingles. I got shingles. And so if you know anything about shingles, it is like, it's your immune system breaking down. If you've ever had chicken pox, whatever, it pops out when high stress. And at the time I was like 30 years old, I'm like, this is ridiculous. What's going on? I went to the doctor. He's like, why are you stressed out? And I was like, oh my gosh. So it was a huge wake up call for me. I quit my job halfway through the year, came back to Ohio, like a dog with my tail between my legs, felt like a total, I'm going to say it, felt like a loser. It was horrible. And I was like, what am I going to do? I don't want to go back into the school system. I don't want to go back to other careers that I had started. And what am I drawn to? So that's when I reached out to an old professor who is now one of my very good friends. And she told me about like holistic health, different alternatives to, mental health and all kinds of stuff. And I got into Reiki. So for those who don't know about Reiki, it's energy healing. It's actually, it stemmed from different things, but it's Japanese culture and there's a lot more to it. But just to kind of give you a little bit about it, it's all about removing blockages, getting you into a meditative state, relaxing the mind, body, spirit, soul. It's not a religious thing. It's definitely very spiritual. Anybody can do it. Anybody can, get involved. And so I was really drawn to it. So she taught me and I leveled up, and now I'm a Reiki master, and I started my own business, and I'm now actually creating my own brand around so many different things, but definitely around just bringing out the joy in life, finding your joy, finding your peace, and using my background, of course, because, anything that I have done since, then and up until now has helped shape me who I am. So it's funny because a lot of people are like, well, gosh, you're not even in your career field, or you're not doing this, or you didn't use your schooling. I'm like, I use it every day. You know what I mean? Nothing's ever gone to waste. It's all an experience. You use it and you build off of it. So, yeah, that's kind of how I got to become who I am. That was like a very, very, very short, fast way to talk about it. But that's where I'm currently at, you know, and I love what I do. And I do a lot of digital content work now that, you know, I do a lot of crazy fun things, but it does center around being happy. And that's what I'm all about. So that's me in a nutshell.
That's fantastic. So for those of you that are not already following her, she is a fun social media follow. And the funny thing is it's like peeling layers back. Every time I read a little bit more, I've gone to your website. I've been listening to your podcast, which we'll talk about here in a moment, and looking at your TikTok page and your Instagram page. I find that you have a new scope of interest every time I go to your content. That's fascinating because I think people that can diversify their interests yet maintain balance with all of that are some of the most interesting and well-rounded people in the world. And I know today's episode of your podcast, you talked about balance. You talked about the significance, the numerology involved with 2/22/22. Why don't you introduce what your podcast is and what's it about? When do you release episodes? And let's talk about the significance of the balance.
Yeah, thank you for bringing up my podcast. I totally forgot about that in the whole storyline. But my podcast is called Peace, Toast, and Jam. And I usually release it every Tuesday. And the whole thing about it is, you know, because people have always said, like, what is that name? Like, what does that even represent? Like, why? And I'm like, well, it represents what I talk about. So the peace aspect is, hey, let's talk about peace. What brings you peace? It doesn't matter what it is. It's whatever's good for you. The toast aspect was the nutrition fitness side. So like, I love to eat toast. And it's so funny because as someone who's been in bodybuilding, someone who is heavily involved in, you know, in sports still as an athlete myself, and just always been in fitness. It's like, there was a time where it's like carbs of the devil. And I'm like, no, like, you know, if you want a good piece of toast, have some toast, you know, it's all about balance. And then the jam part is actually music, because I'm heavily, you know, influenced by music in a good way, positive way. And I feel like music can make or break you. It can set the mood for so many different things. So that is what I like to bring to the podcast itself. But today's episode was about today's date, which is, of course, like you said, you know, February 22nd, 2022. It's a huge, crazy numerology day. There's a lot of energy behind it. And even if you're not into energy or anything like that, it's kind of cool to see, you know, even if you're writing it down, like on a check or on whatever, it's like, wow, like so many twos in one spot. So, for me, it was a day to kind of just get balanced. And for those who are kind of drawn to, you know, the energetic side of things, it is a crazy cool day. But the whole point behind it is to kind of, you know, sit back, take a second and reevaluate your life in a way that's like, like, let's just talk about relationships. Let's just talk about my job. Let's talk about family. Let's talk about business, whatever. Do I feel balanced where I'm at right now? And it's also a time to go, like, can I show a little bit more compassion to other people and myself included? You know, are my relationships in harmony? Can I possibly work on that? And with all that being said, you know, for those who believe in manifestation, today's a great day to kind of set some intentions and say, all right, what do I want going forward? You know what I mean? And this year, I feel like in general has been a huge like sigh of relief and also like a boost of energy because, and I know this is like, you know, we're probably sick of talking about it, but 2020 was a rough year, you know? And then I feel like the 2021, I feel like was a time for us to, you know, get our feet back on the ground. And then 2022 now is like, all right, you know, you had that break period. Maybe you see the world in a different light now. Let's go. You know, it's time to go. It's time to grind. So that's kind of like what I was bringing to today's episode was just, hey, like, you know, your destination where you want to go, it's still there. It's, you know, but like, let's enjoy the journey in between. You know what I mean? So that's kind of what the episode was about today.
Totally agree with you. I try and take It's so hard sometimes because I try and take as much of a neutral standpoint as I can, sociopolitically, spiritually, because those things are unique to each individual, right? My line is to everybody is, you are an individual, but so is everybody else.
Yes.
Right? You know?
Yes.
And so, and I, you know, when I explain my podcast to people, because I have found the joy of TikTok lives just recently and engaging with people and talking with them. They ask me, they say, so what is your podcast about? And I say, well, honestly, it doesn't matter if I'm having a UFC star on my show or some semi-famous musician or a doctor or a lawyer. My whole point in antithesis is to prove that we have more in common than we do different. It's just right now we are living in a society that has benefited by amplifying our differences, a way to keep us divided, right? So when you said 2020 was a hard year, 2020 was a son of a bitch.
Yes, it was.
and it's no different for myself. You know, I've talked about this many times on the podcast where I fell off of my routines in such a way that it was almost embarrassing. And then 2021 was almost worse. But 2022, I've kind of established for myself that 2022 is the year of discipline, right? It's the year to fall back into things. And so it's a direct parallel to the exact things that you were talking about, finding balance, like regaining a sense of self again, and like getting back to like our own individual sense of normalcy, no matter what that looks like, if it's a new normal or regaining our old normal before 2020 even happened, right?
Yes, I agree. And I think the best part of what you said right now was like figuring out what works for you. Cause you know, it's, I feel like as humans, we're creatures of habit. And we like routines. I mean, that's something that solidifies you. That's a balance in its own, you know, right? And also getting like a firm foundation of feeling as if every day you're waking up and you're not just like floating in the air, right? And that's why they do say like get a routine in. And I feel as though when 2020 happened, a lot of people were just literally knocked off that foundation and we're floating around going like, well, what do I do now? Like, I can't do the things I used to do because literally I can't go to the gym. I can't go here. I mean, everything's different. Maybe I can't go to my job anymore. Maybe I don't have work. You know what I mean? There are so many things that changed and people had to shift whether they were ready or not. And now I feel like it's a time to, I mean, you can reinvent yourself. You know, that's the beauty of what happened through all of this. And I know there was a lot of heartache that happened, you know, in the last 2 years, you know, and so I'm not trying to discount that. But I feel like there was also a lot of, you know, I like the whole idea of like 2020 being perfect vision for us, right? So like all of a sudden people put their glasses on, they're like, oh, wait a minute, this is really what the world's like. This is really what my life is like. Do I actually like it? If I don't, I can change it. If I do, let's keep doing what we're doing. There was no right or wrong with all of this. But yes, I do feel as though balance is always key. And it's funny too, because you had mentioned earlier that every time you go on my social media, I'm doing something different. I'm doing something, you know, I'm talking about something different. Maybe I'm wearing something different. I mean, and I find balance in the chaos. I feel like that's what I'm good at. Kind of like my hair. It's wild. It's crazy, but it works. You know what I mean? Like I just do so many different things, but I enjoy it because I'm almost so accustomed to it that it's my normal is being abnormal, if that makes sense. Like if I'm not being weird or different or doing something off the wall, I feel uncomfortable. So going back to what you're saying about what is normal and what's your normal, it doesn't really matter as long as it makes sense for you and you feel healthy, like all healthy, you know, then you're good and you can do whatever you want. But balance is definitely key and feeling aligned.
Absolutely. So it's funny, you brought up MySpace earlier, and this is, I have this conversation, this little text group of like former musicians like myself, and we always talk about how MySpace really was the glory days of social media because, I mean, you could customize your page. You can put up whatever song you want up. You could say, hey, okay, these are my top 8 friends today. That's going to probably change tomorrow, probably cause a lot of fights,
right.
Random relationship status changes, but it was fun. It was a lot of fun. Now, the thing about social media right now is it can be taken 2 different ways. It could be the construct that unites us, but it's also the construct that divides us. And finding you on social media and some of the community in TikTok in particular, because I'll tell you, I initially got a TikTok account to watch my teenage daughters because I wanted to make sure that they weren't doing anything nefarious or nobody was doing anything nefarious with them. Correct. But I found that there was really meaningful content. And and I said this in the intro, which you haven't heard yet. You'll hear it whenever you hear this episode. But I said in the intro, there is a difference in what the TikTok algorithm feeds you, depending upon whether you have your account set up as a personal account or if you have your account set up as a business account. Now, if you have it set up as a personal account, it's stuff that fits your personal interest range, right? So for a guy my age, there's thirst traps and there's barbecue and maybe some sports stuff, right? Yeah. But I flip over to a business account and it's meaningful content. And it's like, you know, it's really cool stuff like motivational speeches, like jujitsu videos, like for me, it's like MMA stuff, you know? But interesting thing, you have popped up on both my personal side and my professional side. So it goes to show the diversity of the content that you're putting out. Yes. So long-winded diatribe aside, when did you know things were starting to click with you and TikTok?
Oh man, TikTok is funny because I came home from Florida, 2019, right before Christmas, 2020. You know, I mean, like that, everything. And a friend of mine who is actually in the music business, has his own management company, 10 and 8 management company, Mishko. He's like, you should do TikTok. He's like, I feel like you'd be great for it. And I'm like, listen, that's for kids. And I was like, flat out, I was like, I will not be on that. It's kids and people just want like weird attention. And you know what? Like, I'm good with Instagram. And like, that's fine. He's like, no. Like, seriously, you need to do it. And I did it on a whim. And I was like, whatever. All right. Right away, I was like, there's something different with this. This is cool. I like this. And just like how you said, I started realizing, okay, there's certain videos that keep being fed to me and also based off the things that I liked or I saved. And I'm like, okay. And I started finding so much awesome content. I'm like, there are some really creative people out here. And I'm like, I can freaking do this. So when I really started to notice that it was clicking is when I was starting to get the feedback from people. Because to be honest with you, that is, for me, that's what I do it for. You know what I mean? I want the feedback of, hey, is this helping you? Is this motivating you? And, you know, sprinkle in between, I'm going to do the trends or I'm going to do whatever's going on. But to be honest with you, it's all of that other junk, I like to say, is to almost funnel people into the real meaning of why I'm there. You know what I mean? Right. And it's almost like you've got to play the game a little bit and you do it in your way. You do it in a tasteful way or whatever way is for you. You know what I mean? No judgment. But I started realizing like, wow, this is a huge platform. This is the biggest social media platform that's out there. Why should I not be using this? I'd be silly not to. And I really started to capitalize on it. I started to follow the trends. I mean, and I was that person who'd wake up in the morning, you know, brush my teeth, do my thing, and just be like, all right, 10 minutes, I'm going to be on TikTok and I'm going to save all the videos that are trending and then I'm going to put my own spin on it. And that's really how it started. And I started realizing, wow, it's gaining some traction. People are enjoying it. I see the crossover of the messages saying, hey, I saw you on TikTok. I'm going to follow you on Instagram. Oh, hey, I see you're doing this. I'm going to go to your webpage. I want you to coach me on something. It was just the coolest, like bing, 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 bing kind of effect. And that's when I started noticing it. and my follower count just started like going up, just like that. So it's really a simple structure if you can do that and if you're unique to who you are. Because the biggest thing is what I noticed, even from the first kind of videos I was doing, was I was trying way too hard to mimic exactly what someone else was doing, which is a normal thing. You're like, oh, this view has 100,000, hits. I'll do exactly what that girl's doing. And no, because people smell the like fakeness a mile away. And I was like, I'm just going to be me. I'm going to be weird. So I dress up in Star Wars. So I go down the street dancing, you know what I mean? I wake up in the morning and dance to some 70s, 80s music. Oh, and I'm sprinkling How to Be Happy. Like that's me, and people want that authentic, genuine personality to show through. And that's when I knew like, that's how I'll make it with this. And it's been great ever since.
Right. And it's not instantaneous for everybody either. And I think that's something that's important for people to understand. Podcasting in particular, there is this phenomenon where they say there's 4 million or so new podcasts every year. 70% of them do not make it through the first year due to a trend called pod fading. It's because people at some point become discouraged, so they quit creating the content. Yeah. Okay. And I'm kind of noticing a similar trend with TikTok as well. Like for me, I've been using TikTok and leveraging it to promote my podcast for about a year now, but I'm really just now starting to pick up traction with it. Right? Because it's like it's consistency. Consistency is key, and figuring out the formula that works for you.
Right. And that's big too. I think consistency in every aspect of your life is so important. Really. I listened to Gary Vee, and I like him a lot because I think he's super motivational. And I'm sure if you know about him, but he talks about how on YouTube he had that wine thing that he did. And I think he said a couple years, like no subscribers, no one following him. And then obviously we know Gary Vee to be this crazy, influential, successful man now. But it was the fact that he was doing what he loved and he kept doing it and he was consistent. And for some people, they look at someone like that and they're like, wow, like he really doesn't care if anyone's watching or not. He's just doing what he loves. And I kind of like that. Like, I mean, he's a loyal person to himself. And so I think with TikTok, a lot of times it's just being consistent. It's just being yourself, putting that content out all the time. And the algorithm is kind of funky on TikTok because I feel like you can put out one video and it can make a hit, or you can put out 6 videos and they can all make a hit. Like it really is.
Right.
I don't really know how it's all done, to be perfectly honest. I know the trends work really well, the trending sounds, the trending whatever, but sometimes it is just like, all right, if you just pump out 6 videos today, just that consistency alone can make you rise up, So I agree with the consistency aspect. You got to do that with it.
And I'm glad you brought up Gary Vee talking about doing something that he loves and just being consistent with that. Mm-hmm. What is it in life that brings you joy?
Oh gosh, so much. You know what? The biggest thing for me is when someone, doesn't matter who it is, it could be a stranger. It could be someone I am working with as a client, or, a coaching client, or Reiki, or even just a random person on social media who follows me, and they leave me a message or they approach me and they say, you know what? I just want to let you know that what you're doing really is helping me today, or really helped me today. That alone, like, I feel like that's $1 million to me. Like that gives me the validation that my purpose of bringing joy to people was validated. You know what I mean? Like it just came true. And if I could get that maybe, once a month, I would be like, I'm good. And I say this humbly, but I do. And that's what keeps me going, Also, just being able to find that balance and that joy in myself, because I tell this to everybody. If you don't love yourself, if you don't like the person that you see in the mirror every day, and if you're not proud of where you are in your life, doesn't matter where you're at, then it's really hard, if not impossible, to give that to anyone else, to give it to your partner, to give it to your business, to, your family. And so finding that inner joy is so important. And for me, what brings me joy is obviously bringing other people joy, but to tap into my own joy a lot. I do practice, meditation. Obviously I can do Reiki on myself, and I do that, but there's not a day that goes by that I don't dance. I mean, I'm telling you straight up, like every day, even if it's 5 minutes, and dancing to me is joy. I sing weekly. I don't care if it sounds like crap or if I'm just, screaming in the shower. It doesn't matter. But my point is I do the things that bring me joy no matter what is going on. And that keeps me stable. And in turn, I'm able to bring joy to other people. So that's kind of my whole reason and purpose for being here. But that's what brings me joy.
So on the flip side of that, and not to go dark,
that's okay.
But given this platform that you've developed, does it ever get really overwhelming? And are there things or aspects about it that make you feel a little bit nervous?
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's, there's always contrast. Without darkness, we would not be able to see the light. You know what I mean? So that's so important. And I feel like a lot of people look at me and they think, oh my gosh, she's such a positive Polly and she's always so smiley and happy. I'm like, listen, when the cameras are off and when I'm running around and I'm doing something, oh my gosh. I mean, there are days where I break down just like any other normal human being on this earth. But overwhelming to me is when, for instance, I do a lot of digital content work too. So I do freelance work for businesses. They'll send me products, I'll do reviews, I make videos, and I love that aspect of it. But, there's deadlines and sometimes I have to recreate things. And on top of that, I got to get my podcast episode done. Oh, I have clients. Oh, I have to be here. Oh, I'm a daughter. I got to do this. I have responsibilities, I mean, just like anyone else. And it can get very overwhelming and it can be almost like a lot of pressure to stay as happy as I usually and normally am for the most part, and to not let people see that. And it's funny, bring up jujitsu. There's days where I've come on the mats and a couple of my close friends there, they look at me and they're like, what's wrong? And I'm like, I got to go hard today, guys. Just let me maul someone, And
right.
It's like, whoa. And I'm like, yeah, but to me, I have to find release in some way. Even I have days where it's just it's crazy overwhelming. There's a lot of stress. And as far as nervousness goes with everything, dealing with clients and having clients, it's very closely related to a counselor or a therapist. And there's a lot of ethics that go along with that. I've actually done a podcast episode based off of that because someone asked me, I have a Patreon group. So one of my patrons was like, hey, let's talk about ethics. Is that the same thing with spiritual guidance as, with regular clinical or, school guidance? I go, yes and no. I go, here's the thing. I go, obviously I'm not a clinical counselor. I'm not a licensed therapist in that way. I am a coach. I am a Reiki master and guide. I like to keep it still professional. Now, obviously being out there in social media, it's a little bit different. Because I do gain a lot of clients through social media. So yes, they do see a lot of my private life. Am I sharing every little bit? Absolutely not. I don't know. I'm not on reality TV right now, but yes, people do know about my life more than, let's say, your average therapist or counselor. But the nervousness always comes with, I would say, there's always that line that people want to cross, because you get so close. This is actually a conversation that I had just this past week. With what I do, it's a very personal relationship that happens, and people want to open up to you. They want to tell you their raw and most vulnerable things. And that's exactly what I want, because let's get to the root of the problem so that I can help and guide you, right? And that you can kind of have it reflected back to you too. But with that, people can get attached, and it's not their fault. This is not a judging thing. But that's where, as a guide, as someone who's in that leadership role and position, I have to make sure that I have good boundaries set, or I have to, recognize when it's happening and just kind of reinforce it. And again, people are humans. It happens. It's not the end of the world, but it can get a little bit kind of hairy, or it can get a little bit gray. And it's like, all right, we got to back up. We got to reevaluate the situation. Is this in the best interest of you and me? Always you first, because you are my client. But hey, is this this a good combo, because maybe I'm not the right fit for you, and there's nothing wrong with that. So with all that being said, that is probably the only thing I've ever run into, but that's pretty much it as far as the dark side of that. Yeah.
I really enjoy your perspective here. With that said, I think that's a mindset that that's not naturally intuitive. It's something you develop over time.
Oh yeah.
So considering that, who's the most influential person in your life, or who would you cite as some of your heroes?
Oh boy. Oh my goodness. That's a great question. Most influential in my life right now. Oh gosh. This is going to sound so funny, but the most influential person is not really a person. It's a podcast. So I think it's called like Motivational Mindset or Mindset, something like that. A good friend of mine who, her name's Hope Sweeney. She owns her own tattoo shop called Intuitive Ink in Austin, Ohio. I do my Reiki out of it. See some of my clients there. And she's been a huge supporter of me. She's been just a fantastic friend, but she got me on this podcast. And it's basically like a collage of individuals just spewing out motivation, it's crazy stuff, right? I mean, all the big name people. And it's been such an influential part of my routine, my daily routine. I mean, when I wake up in the morning, if I'm taking a shower, if I'm brushing my teeth, whatever, I mean, boom, that podcast is on, even if it's on for like 3 or 5 minutes, that gets me going. I'm very much like an audible kind of person. Like I want to hear it. And I want to just have it fill up my ears. That's why I love podcasts so much, because it's like you can be doing things and also be getting that kind of that inspiration in your ear. But that's probably the most influential like person or thing in my life. And as far as heroes go, oh goodness, I would say, this is kind of classic, but I look to my mom as my hero. Yeah. And, she's 4'11". She's a spicy little Italian Irish lady, but I will tell you, she's such a loyal person to her family, and she is like a super mom. I mean, she's a phys ed teacher. She's going on, I think she's 67 now. I mean, bless her. And she's just going hard. And I'm like, gosh, I really hope I'm like her when I'm, her age. Like I'm still, physically fit, and I'm out there, and I care for my family, and I'm doing everything. Like she's definitely my hero.
That's fantastic. Yeah. And the motivational mindset thing, it's so hilarious you bring that up. Because while you were talking about that, I'm thinking a couple of years ago, backing up to 2020, before 2020 happened, I stopped listening to music in the gym, and I would put on motivational videos on YouTube. And it's like, that's what I would do while I ran cardio or doing any kind of cardio. It's like, I'm just going to listen to motivational speeches the whole time I'm working out. And then when I'd switch gears and start lifting, that's when I would listen to a little bit of music. So it's very funny you bring that up, because I do the same thing. I literally do the same thing. I'm not even kidding you. Like you're saying, I'm like, yeah, I do that. Yeah, especially with like like if you're running or jogging, it's just like straightforward. Put on that motivational stuff that gets you going. But then when you're lifting, I kind of want some groove or, get the music. Right. You want to feel like a badass. So
yes.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So what are you listening to right now musically?
Ooh, you had brought up Avenged Sevenfold, which, that's always in there. Yes. But I will tell you this, just like my content that you see, that's how my music is. I am I'm all over the place. I mean, I really am. And I actually have certain playlists that are legit, this is for the heavy lifting days. This is for just walking in the park. This is like my hippy dippy meditation music. This is like my lovely, like I'm feeling like all about love kind of thing. I have the playlist galore of that. But right now, I would say that I've been listening a lot to, I'm such a sucker for 70s and 80s, especially 80s rock. Like I could just jam out all day to that kind of stuff, like the greatest hits. And a lot of Michael Jackson. Like I just like groove to all of that. And it's like, right. I think it's because obviously I was brought up with it, being a late 80s baby myself. And it's just something that no matter what day or time, like it always is, it feels good to listen to it. Yeah.
Yeah. It always hits right?
Yes, exactly. Yes.
That's fantastic. Whenever I think I finished this is way back when, like the second or third season of Cobra Kai. I did the same thing. It was like I made like an 80s rock playlist and I named it on Spotify, I'm going to kick so much ass while kicking ass that I'll be kicking ass. Something stupid like that. And it was like, well, I got to channel my inner Johnny Lawrence and be a badass here, right?
Oh, wasn't that so good, Cobra Kai, by the way? Okay, so
it's insane.
But some people were totally like, that was so lame and so cheesy. And I'm like, listen, I understand. Like, yeah, there was a lot of cheesiness to it and whatever, but it was so good. And to like have John back and everybody, I was like, this is fantastic. I was obsessed when it came out, like obsessed. Yes.
Right. It's the same thing. It's the same thing the same reason why people get attracted to reality TV, because you just want to shut your mind off and be entertained. And like nostalgia is such a good way to do that. And something they did with Cobra Kai that is like once in a blue moon is they just perfectly tapped into the nostalgia that you let all the shortcomings fall to the wayside. You're like, okay, I get it. It's a little cheesy, but God, it's my cheesy, you know? Yes.
Like, that's how I feel about those movies in general. Like, they just, like The Sandlot or something. Like, you know, like to bring people back. Like, that is, it's like a no-brainer for people wanting to tap into that again, in my opinion. But I love Cobra Kai. Oh, I loved it so much.
That's awesome. I love these parallels. So since I've got your attention, why don't you talk about your social media, where people can find you online, plug your website.
Yes. Oh, absolutely. So as we've talked about, my name Slick Vick is my name, but I put a B and an A after it because it stands for badass at one point. So if you want to find me, you can find me on like Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, under the social media handle name Slick Vick. B as in boy, A as in apple. And my actual personal website is under www.slickvick.com. So a lot of Slick Vick going on there. It's easy to remember. And that's where you can find me. And of course, my podcast, Peace, Toast, and Jam, you can find on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. Mm-hmm.
So we're going to do this again, right?
Oh, heck yeah. We have to.
Oh, yeah. I think I usually, you know, you have to talk things into existence every now and again. Yes. And before we pressed record, I brought up the idea of maybe having you co-host an episode or two of the podcast in the future. Let's stay in touch. Let's make this happen for real.
Oh, I'm down. You know I'm down. I'm all for it. Yeah.
Well, hey, it was great getting to meet you, and you know, I'm glad we can call each other friends now. Thanks for doing the show.
Thanks for having me on the show.
Once again, I'd like to thank Vicki, aka Slick Vick, for being on the show today. She has a great TikTok page. Look her up, Slick Vick BA, and she has a link tree there where you can find her all over the web. You can find her podcast, her website, and more about her in general. She's an awesome person. Good to have that sense of positivity in our lives. You can find me on all forms of social media, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, Twitter. Wherever you search out your socials, I'm there. You can also find my episodes on YouTube. Hit me up at www.caughtonthemic.com. And as always, I appreciate the 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. And now, Spotify has a rating system. This has been Caught on the Mic with Michael Clark. I'm Michael Clark. Until next time, thank you.